from a land investment side of things, because a lot of people will ask me, is it worth it? Will a piece of ground pay for itself from the crop? And I'd say it's a rare case.
It's rare, and it certainly has never performed to that extent for us as landowners, being off the farm, taking a share of the crop. That's not occurred, and I never expected that it would. But I think it's not that different for the grower if they add acres to their operation with a purchase of cropland. I'm sure they're depending on other acres to generate cash flow to help pay that debt off.
Yeah,
and it's not that different from like a residential real estate investment model, where the first property is the most challenging one to finance and cash flow, but once you get that paid down and then you have additional properties to add to the portfolio, same as like fields of cropland fields, then the cash flow is if you plan it out in that manner, you can start to pay down the next purchase with with the equity you already have, and the income off of those acres.
Sure. And I mean, one thing that people say, they'll ask me, is farmland worth purchasing? I say, well, how long do you want to hold on to it? And they're like, well, I penciled out this amount of bush, say the county average. Let's say pencil out county average, and then the last 10 years of grain commodity prices, and overlay those. This is, like you said, and so many people compare it to the stock market. Well, stock market has an average of, let's just say 10%. This isn't 10%. So why would I invest in land? And they so many times don't take into account the appreciation of the land. Now, the only way you can borrow against it or sell it. So, I mean, and I don't know, I don't like to sell ground. When I buy a piece, I don't buy it with the intention of selling it, and then let's say you've got a bunch of equity in it and you borrow using that land as collateral. Well, I mean, then you're in a different position. How does a grower or someone, that is, wanting to buy land, et cetera, is there a line in there that you find a balance in? I think you said it really good that, I didn't buy this piece of ground expecting it to cash flow itself in regards to a payment.
No, and I think that's why using cropland as a investment and a part of a retirement plan is not for everyone. I think it's just, the rule of investing is you really need to understand and know, what your money's being put to work in, and for people that have no connection to agriculture, and particularly a community where there's operators that you can trust, it's going to be a completely different scenario for those individuals. I wouldn't advise it. I mean, I think, having some background in farming growing up, and then knowing people that are growers where in the areas that we purchase cropland, is a big part of the success for us. But for me, it's been the best hedge that I'm aware of against inflation.
Okay.
And I think we're invested in the stock market since the early 80s. My wife and I have put money in the market, and we've seen a lot of erratic cycles, and the corrections that your investment advisors talk about have become more and more pronounced. In 1987, in October, there was a correction. It was under 20% decline in equity values kind of across the broader market, but it recovered quickly in about 2 years. And then in 2000, there was that technology related correction. That also recovered fairly quickly. But then in 2008 and 9, that was about a 38 to 40% correction in the stock market. And that took a decade to work itself out. And so that was a long period of very little return for the investors that are using a 401k and deferring part of their salary for the long term, and not trying to day trade and find a quick solution to regain that lost value. I mean, it was a 10-year slog from 2008 almost to 2020, and then now this post-COVID downturn has taken a couple of years. So it's a little bit more, I guess, of a traditional correction, but I don't think we're through the volatility yet with the inflation that we're all seeing in the economy.
Sure. Well, we saw a crazy influx in gold prices just up until last week, and then it went down hard. But I mean, it was like I was getting texts from people, dude, you see what gold prices are doing? I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Cropland prices have had their corrections, but not in the 21 years I've been involved doing this. But I know it was in the late 70s. There were some operators some growers that got hurt, that had expanded their operations and borrowed money against cropland. Of course, there was a spike in commodity prices, and like in the mid 70s, I think in 75 or thereabouts, and it drove up land values. And decisions were made based on those kind of temporary higher commodity prices, and land values went up, and interest rates were high then. And mortgage rates were 11 to 13%. Okay. We think 7% is high now, or I guess the general population does. I don't agree.
Right.
But
right.
There was a correction in cropland values, at least in this area, in the late 70s, and some of the growers went bankrupt. They couldn't service their debt.